What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben, and welcome back to the bench. This is episode number 4 for the All at Sea group build. This is the A6M2-N, and today, guys, we're going to go ahead and work a little bit on the cockpit, get the fuselage all buttoned up. I want to also go ahead and build up the floats and get everything kind of in a good position, because we need to make sure we can map out and make our base, because that's going to be a very difficult thing, I think, at this point. So let's go ahead and take a look at the cockpit. Now, last episode, we did a lot of the basic internal piping, and we have glued the sidewalls up into the inside of the fuselage, and I moved them forward a little bit so that we could then just glue in the cockpit floor with the seat, the bulkhead, and all that good stuff. So I wanted to go ahead and just kind of test fit it and make sure that we've got these lined up in a good position. Then I think we will actually be decent to go ahead and jump on the instrument panel, because we do have to detail up the instrument panel and get that going. So before we do that, though, I wanted to make sure that this is all going to fit and we have everything lined up as it should be, because they actually tell you to install the sidewalls onto the cockpit floor and then put the whole tub up into the aircraft. But I wanted to go ahead and try this first to make sure that everything is nice and neat and there's no gaps that are running around the inside of the fuselage. So I think this is going to be a good move. Now, for the instrument panel, the entire thing is that Nakajima interior green, but the dials need to be black. Now, there's a couple ways we can do that. Of course, the instruments here come in a decal form, which we could just go ahead and cut out and then put those right onto the instrument panel itself. Now, I don't really want to do that, though, because these are kind of finicky. So then I thought, well, maybe I can just use a punch, something like this, where I can go ahead and just punch out the actual dial and place the individual dials. Take this, give a little tap with a hammer or something, and we should be pretty much ready to go. I'd take it off, put it right where it needs to be, and move on from there. Now, these punches are super handy to have, and I actually have a whole box of them. They range in size from about 1 millimeter up to like 10 millimeters. So they're a good investment, but I think I'm going to fall back on the tried and true method. Let's just paint it. That should be the easiest way to do it. As long as I have a steady hand, I've got a tiny brush, like a micro brush or something I can use, right like this one, then dry brush and move on from there. So let's go ahead and cue up that time lapse and get this thing painted so we can get the whole cockpit buttoned up. All right, I went ahead and took the liberty of painting up some of the push rods on the engine, and I think we are good with that. I'm letting that dry off camera, and we're switching gears real quick over to some basic assembly for the floats. Now the A6M2-N has a giant center float and then 2 smaller wing floats. So I want to go ahead and get those all built up so I can go ahead and get the wings together, and then I can kind of test fit everything and know exactly how big of a base I'm going to need. Because again, I'm going to try to do kind of like a water resin base, and I want to mold it from a silicone mold. And in order to make that mold, I got to make the actual water and waves and all that out of plastilina clay. At least that's my plan. Now, I don't know how it's going to work, but I'm going to give it a try. But I need to go ahead and get these floats all assembled so I can get the spacing correctly, so I can go ahead and get those molded into the actual base. Whew, a lot of work to do, guys, but this is a lot of fun too. Now, the wing floats as well, they're real simple. There's only 2 parts to them. There's nothing fancy. I'm going to take a little bit of this extra thin, make a couple of drops here and there on the locating tabs, a little bit on the bottom here to run along that side, piece them together, and we're good to go. So let's go ahead and we're going to do the other side, and then we're going to let this dry, and then we're going to come on back, cue up that time lapse, and we're going to go ahead and sand off any seams, get these all nicely faired in, make sure they look awesome, because then we got to go ahead and fit them up to the wing, get some measurements, and go from there. So let's go ahead, jump on in, get these all nicely cleaned up so we can move on from there. So let's do it, guys. All right, all the floats are off drying, and I want to do a little bit of dry brushing here on the cockpit. We have the instrument panel installed in there into the cockpit floor, just a little bit of the Vallejo chrome. I'm going to do a little dry brushing right here on the 7.7 machine guns. Just a little bit across the top and some around the edge, just to make those kind of pop a little bit more. I think we're looking pretty decent now, so let's go ahead and cue up that time lapse. We're going to glue the cockpit into the fuselage and then glue the fuselage together. Let's get this all buttoned up so we can move on from there. All right, everybody, so we have the wings put together. I've got the fuselage put together, the cockpit is installed, everything is drying, the floats are beautifully sanded down. We need to do a little bit of work on the main float because there's actually a seam at the very top. I want to go ahead and get that all nicely kind of fared in. Then we'll be ready to start kind of putting everything together. I'm actually drilling out the cannon holes here with just a real quick pin vise with my drill bit in there. And I've run across one little problem here. So I don't know if this is my own fault or just a basic molding fault. I don't really know, but I noticed that there is a large gap on either side of the wing. That's no good because you really can't get everything lined up if there's a gap there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to kind of spread the width of the bottom of the fuselage. And to do that, I'm going to use a little bit of a toothpick here. We're just kind of doing some like test fit here. And I'm going to cut one more, and then we're just going to kind of splay those out to help kind of cover up that gap. There's a little bit of flexibility in these parts here, which is nice, and hopefully that shouldn't mess with the dihedral or anything. I know if I didn't do this, the dihedral would be super off. So I don't really want to have this weird like goal-shaped zero wing. I want to get everything nice and lined up. Now let's go ahead and test fit it. You can see there's a lot of flex in those wings. Let's test fit it, and haha, look at that. Gap is mostly gone. A little bit of play towards the back of the wing fuselage joint, but honestly, that is super improved. So I'm happy with that. I think we're going to go ahead and call it quits for today. We are in the mix of things now. We're on to 2019. So hopefully you guys had a great New Year's Eve and an awesome New Year's Day. We've got a couple group builds kicking into gear now. So let's go ahead and call it here for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you back here next episode. Until then, keep on building, get some bench time, build something cool, and we will see you back here on the next episode of Ben Builds for the All at Sea group build. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.